Hello, welcome to Direct Joy. I'm Cherie and it is lunchtime. Well, it's lunchtime for me. And yeah, this is Direct Joy. Today we're talking about loneliness. And so, what is Direct Joy? Who am I? My name's Cherie Joy, and I am a psychotherapeutic counsellor, a psychologist, a counsellor, a psychotherapist, a Christian. I identify as a woman, and I am a mum. And wow, all these labels, that really gets me thinking. All these labels and what they mean to me. Do they mean something different to you? Yeah, wow. Let's take that as a point to think about. And yeah, what does one thing mean to me and what does another thing mean to you, and how we judge all these things in the world. Wow, that went deep quick. Direct Joy is coming to you directly and a replay because I think it's really important that we talk about mental health and emotional well-being. And so last year, just as we started to come out of lockdown, I decided that I wanted to start being able to share on social media, and give people access to some of the information that to me is readily available as a therapist and a psychologist, but maybe other people are either on a waiting list for, or there's a stigma in accessing it, or it's too expensive. And so let's work out how we can share this stuff for free. And so the idea is that you send me your questions, or you tell me your questions if you're part of my community, my local community, or you DM me, or you PM me, or you email me, or you text me, or you WhatsApp me, or whatever. We have a conversation and then we talk about it, which means usually I go a bit off plan because I have a plan, and then someone says to me, hey, have you talking about loneliness, for example? So thank you for the people that do say to me, hey, what about this? Because to open that up and to make yourself vulnerable, knowing I'm a therapist, but also whatever else I am to you, thank you, because I'm honoured that you want to hear what I've got to say and my take on it. And yeah, thanks for showing up. Thanks for looking to this replay. Thanks for people who say, hey, Cherie, would you work with so-and-so in my life? Because it is an absolute honour to work with people when they're on their mental health, their emotional well-being journey. And I work with people across spectrums, right? From one session of help to 10 years of help, sometimes more. And it's not really help, it's support. My job is kind of support team, and once I'm on your team, I'm always on your team, and I'm available, and I'm there to work with you and work with where you're at and come alongside you and see what journey we can make. So today our journey is a 15-20 minute journey into loneliness, which is wow. So one of the stats that I come across was 70% of us in the UK felt lonely at some point or another during the pandemic. 70%. So even though you may have been locked in your house with people or locked down in your house with people that you choose to be, or are your family, or your flatmates, or whomever it might be, you felt lonely. Okay. And okay, I get the people living alone feeling lonely, yeah. And that's still a phenomenally high number, 70%. And that's a big subject, right? Then, loneliness, if 70% of people felt that way. And that's at some point. So also, that's the whole spectrum, because you may then have also felt really claustrophobic, of course. Wow. Okay, so let's tackle loneliness. Let's think about it. The reasons for loneliness are great. Not great. There's lots of them. I mean, so lack, bereavement, breaking up, being a single parent, like they're just the top ones that come off the top of my list. But when you're not heard, when there's no one to hear you or you're not heard by those around you, that's quite something, isn't it? Because we feel different then to others. We look at social media, we look at those we are working with, socialising with, those in our family, and that whole kind of envy, the ugly duck syndrome kind of comes to mind, that sense of being left out, the sense of being different, the sense of not being heard, the feeling of anger, the feeling of, am I the only person who feels like this? Like, you know, wanting to kind of rattle cages, and the sadness that comes with that, because when there is that level of confusion and anxiety and like loneliness, the sheer enormity of overwhelm that word conjures up in feeling, in thought, in body, we then have this huge chasm of stuff that, how do we then process that? And it can show up in so many different ways. Depression, anxiety, not wanting to go out, some compulsive behaviours, just completely immobilised in making decisions, in overeating, in undereating. Any sense of control we can then take can be as, you know, grappling for that sense of being heard by someone or something, being understood, being met by ourselves. The numbness and the fear that then takes over. These are humongous impacts, and not being met in that place when no one, no thing, no anything meets us there, when nothing shows up, like we were talking about last week in Direct Joy, that's showing up. But when no one else shows up, when we're not met, or when there's people around us, like that sense of you can feel lonely in a really, really crowded room. What's it like to not be met in that place, to be lonely even when there's lots of people, to be lonely when we've lost someone that we've had around and love, to have a breakup, but then have the every day of mothering, or every day of fathering, or every day of being faced with clearing their stuff, or being reminded of their smell, or hearing their voice, or forgetting their voice. How do we even begin to recognise the impacts that that's having on our everyday, on our every month, on our every year life? Now, the two responses initially that come to my mind, and I get that, you know, as a experienced therapist, I'm going to say this, are therapy and community. I know in my darkest moments, community and therapy mean I'm here today. And that's quite something, because being lonely is hard, especially when you lead a busy life, and definitely when you don't. So therapy and community, but they're not necessarily easily accessible if you've got all of that stuff going on, because you have got all of that stuff going on. So it's a bit like, how do you see the wood for the trees? And let's go on to that, okay? Because I think we need to start backwards, because I love to do that. I love a perspective shift. Oh, I think the puppy's joining us. Here she is. Hello, Sapphire. So the silver linings, what do we do? What do we recognise as silver linings? I think it's quite interesting when we're lonely, because we do actually get to call all the shots. We get to boss it. We get to make all the decisions. Okay? And yes, that's a lot. And yes, that's exhausting. But actually, if you take a minute just to think what decisions you have to make. Maybe one evening, okay? When there's the quiet moment, you may be laying in bed, or you may be in the bath, or you may be brushing your teeth. That moment where you go, okay, so what decisions have I got on my plate for tomorrow? What decisions have I got about what time I go to bed, about what, just a set of decisions that you have to make, big or small. And notice, actually, what's that like to have that sense of peace that you decide? You call the shots with that. There's no consultation. There's no other. Okay, that's sometimes really rubbish, but also sometimes you get that. You get to decide when to turn the light off. You get to decide where to go, when to go, for how long to stay. And actually, that can be really empowering because you get to boss it. You get to know you, and you get to explore and reflect on what you want. And when we do that, when we find that place, which is what therapy allows us to do, one of the things it allows us to do is find our choice, find our desire, which is a place to then access that level of peace. But actually, that's one of the hardest things to do when there's others around, because we're hearing their opinion unconsciously, subconsciously, the tuts people make, even animals, right? The dog wants my attention, yeah? Of course she does. She's just older than a puppy. She's a Springer. She's always going to be a puppy. People around us, animals around us, anything around us is always going to try and draw our attention. It's going to impact just by the nature of being, just amongst others, other things, it takes our attention. Even the birds singing in the morning takes our attention. And even so, the good things and the not so good things take our attention. So taking time to notice that you get to decide what to do with that, just taking the time to notice your decision, your empowerment, can provide that level of peace. It's not easy, but from that point, you can explore that. It's hard because who do you share your good news with? Who do you share that you're feeling that peace? Who do you share that you're making those decisions? Who do you share with when you get a promotion? Who do you share with when you make some kind of achievement or accomplishment? Who do you share your joy with? What do you share? How do you share it? And that can then create more and more loneliness. So seeing the silver linings is actually only one part of it. It's what we want to be doing all the time. It's that perspective change. However, it is only one part of it, because finding comfort and reaching for that place of comfort is a really, really important thing to be doing, because that's where then we accept whatever may be happening, and actually we think about, okay, so this will pass. There will be someone for me to share with. There will be something beyond this moment. There is a me bigger than this moment that can face whatever I'm facing, whatever I'm going through, and the next day. And from this, it allows us to reach, from reaching in and finding that empowerment, we can reach out and we can know that we matter. And when you know that you matter, that root, just a little bit, right? I'm not suggesting that you have to make this kind of magical leap, but just a little bit, that it's okay for you to have part of something, part of a book club, part of a space for you, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 seconds of stillness, a time where you can hold your own hand. Isn't that interesting? That's one of the prayer positions, where you can hear your own voice, where you can allow yourself time and space for prayer and meditation, when you can allow yourself time and space that isn't giving to others, just for a little, just a little. to then think about, where is your choice? What can you give out? Now, ironically, what happens then is you start giving out, and then feel more and more lonely because you aren't necessarily getting back. So starting from that position, starting from that, okay, where can I be heard? What do I enjoy doing? Do I enjoy swimming? Do I enjoy walking? Do I enjoy animals? Do I enjoy reading? Do I enjoy... What is that tiny spark in me that can break free from the loneliness to reach out? And communities are really that, but it may feel like that's too much. Therapy can be extremely helpful, but that might feel like too much. So what would it be like if you're in that position to think about your curiosity, your inquiring mind about you? Oh, okay, so I am feeling like Cherie's describing, that I can't reach out in those ways. Can you reach to yourself? Can you take 30 seconds to listen to what your voice is telling you? And can you be curious about what that voice is saying? Can you allow yourself that true space to meet yourself where you deserve to be met? To meet yourself, to show up real for you. It's interesting, I didn't realise the link between last week and this week. And when my lovely friend said to me, loneliness, I was like, how do they link? How do they link? And look how they link. The beauty of what comes before us and how we can just reach out a little bit and go, I'm going to meet myself there. I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to show up in the way for myself that I show up for others, because ironically that is so what happens all the time. We show up for others, but then we don't show up for ourselves, or it's harder to show up for ourselves. But actually, if we treated ourselves like we treat other people ordinarily, yeah, we can find a real huge meeting place to allow us that freedom. It won't change the fact that we have lost someone. It won't change the fact of the lack or the breakup or your identity or status, however that is labelled or however you label it. But it may change how you think about it. And it certainly, if you go to that place, will change how you feel about it. It's not easy, but then loneliness isn't. It's a dark, quiet, sad, noisy, loud, aggressive, disappointing chasm of nastiness and darkness. But breaking, you only need a little bit of light when it's that dark. You only need a tiny bit. And so allowing that teeny tiny bit of light in can allow that spark of hope, that spark of joy, that spark of moving the grief around a little bit. So find your like-minded people. Find who and what and where. And if you can take one thing, it would be hold your own hand, because it truly is magnificent when you can meet yourself where you need to be met. So if this has brought up anything for you, if you're in a place, please do let me know. It's interesting as a therapist, because we used to see these seasonal patterns of mental health and emotional well-being, and the pandemic has thrown that all up in the air, and there doesn't seem to be those similar patterns. So if you're feeling that you're not following your similar patterns, and it's a particularly tricky time, get in touch. And if it feels like a conflict to work with me, that's not a problem, because I know other people where that wouldn't be the case. So yeah, I look forward to hearing from you in every which way. Thank you for watching live and the replays, and yeah, get in touch And I look forward to seeing you all next week with the next Direct Joy, which I have no idea what it's about, because somebody's going to send me a question or a thought, or I will meet someone, and I have complete trust and faith in that. So thank you very much for watching, and I look forward, have a very blessed day, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, and God bless you all.